it's incredible to me that they want to fix democracy by having these joke parliaments, these so-called people's assemblies. And even then, even if the people of this country in charge all of a sudden were to decide that actually they think the prescription put forward by Extinction Rebellion is one that's too extreme, they would get back out onto the streets. They would block the roads for working people in Britain to getting to and from work. It's the arrogance and the contempt for the British people that gets me. This is what they want to happen, so they're going to get it. If that means taking up your day by perching their latest, I don't know, vegan fashion onto some of our nation's busiest roads, if that means that you lose your job, Dan, if that means that you can't afford to heat your home or get some cheaper food in for you and your kids, well, to hell with that, because the green extreme are in charge now. And I was actually really, really struck by all of this that's been happening at the minute, and actually quite angry about it. And I get the sense on social media and elsewhere, just hearing anecdotally, that a lot of people are getting really quite angry at this. And it's unsurprising to me, because when you consider that groups like Extinction Rebellion are invited into Parliament to speak to ministers and politicians. Extinction Rebellion, Dan, were invited to speak to the government within 6 months of forming. This is an anti-democratic and frankly dangerous ideology that I reckon could potentially ruin lives. I think it's a damn disgrace, actually, that this group are allowed to sort of wax lyrical, put the fear of God into our children and people without any opposition. When have you ever heard about the rise in energy bills, about the loss of jobs, or the economic progress that we've made over the past few 100 years, for example? It's all about what they want. It's their arrogance and their authoritarianism. And I think it's absolutely staggering. And I think what gets more sensible people in this country, they say, all right, well, maybe we do need to reduce our carbon emissions. But our carbon emissions are minuscule. And it's irrelevant to global emissions, to the international picture, you know, whether we achieve net zero or not. But even if that's your default assumption that we should lead the world in this area, well, frankly, we're not doing a very good job at that. We're doing an atrocious job. We've set this ridiculous asphyxiating target of net zero by 2050. China and India, Dan, have already told us where to go. If we'd set a more modest target...
In Australia,
exactly,
a more comparable
yes,
democracy.
Absolutely. They've said, well, this is unreasonable. This is you cannot do that. You cannot bankrupt your economy. Because if we'd set a realistic target, I think the likes of other countries would have said, all right, well, perhaps you're onto something here. We'll come on board in time for the climate conference COP26 in Glasgow later this year. But they haven't. And despite all of this, we've said, oh, well, sod it, Dan. We're going to knacker our economy. We're going to impoverish our people and achieve precisely nothing. The square root of, frankly, sod all, if you don't mind me using pretty frank language, in terms of the global impact or carbon emissions. And it's, again, I go back to that point, it's the arrogance and the contempt for people actually being able to say, hang on a minute, I think actually you should let me go to work, or hang on a minute, I actually will really struggle to pay my energy bills this year. And another point I think I would really stress to viewers is I was really struck by a stat that I saw recently from Ofgem, which is the energy regulator in this country, Dan, because I think it's easy to talk about in quite abstract terms the impact that this could all have, net zero could all have, and the prescription put forward by Extinction Rebellion will end up feeding through to ordinary, everyday British people out there, not just by blocking roads, but actually their bank balances. And Ofgem, the energy regulator, as I say, show that 25% of our electricity bills are made up of environmental or social obligations. 25%. And that's before we've even got the ball rolling, really, with net zero. And that doesn't take into consideration, we haven't even approached gas yet. So what's the environmental obligation going to be once we turn to gas? We haven't pulled out gas boilers yet, but that's coming, Dan. And once we do, Can you imagine the cost of heating your home if that goes up? How many people, elderly people, how many people, families of 4, are going to turn around and say, well, I cannot afford to put the heating on. I can't afford to do it. A former power network director as well, power systems engineers, have looked into this, and they put together a report that says that decarbonising the electricity system alone will cost in the order of £50,000 per British household. Now, many people won't have heard these stats, right? They won't have heard those sums before, because we simply don't debate them in this country, in the media, apart from GB News, thank God for GB News, or in Parliament, you know, whilst they're interviewing the likes of Extinction Rebellion, they don't put this sort of question to them, right? And since the Climate Change Act of 2008 under Gordon Brown and on Theresa May's net zero target by 2050 being set out in law, we are not allowed to talk about this. We're simply not allowed to talk about it. And the police allow the protesters to just ride roughshod over democracy, over
You're
people
completely
getting
right, Darren,
work.
and great investigation, but by the way, absolutely fascinating stuff. I just want to bring up tomorrow's front page of the Daily Telegraph, which we've just received in, because it's relevant to some of what we've been talking about, especially what you just say then in regards to the police. So the Daily Telegraph say they have been given footage that shows a Metropolitan Police officer apparently assisting protesters to walk in front of cars at junction 25 on the M25 when they sat down and blocked the road. Now, the Metropolitan Police have defended their tactics, saying officers made a dynamic risk assessment to prevent protesters injuring themselves. But Priti Patel has actually spoken out to the Daily Telegraph and said of the police and these idiotic protesters, they must uphold the law and take decisive action. This kind of disruption is dangerous and takes police away from communities where they are needed most. But this is just shocking stuff, isn't it? The police actually helping these protesters, Darren. We've gone nuts.
I don't know about you, Dan, but I think this is an absolute PR nightmare for the police. I really, really do. Many people are rightly asking if the same nicey approach by the police here, helping them out, helping these protesters out, like they're aeroplane stewards or checking them into a 5-star hotel or something like that. It suggests to me that as long as your politics are politically palatable, you can do whatever you like in Britain, that the rule of law won't apply to you, that you can blight the lives of hard-working British people who are just trying to make an honest living. And honestly, Dan, I think it really actually makes me quite mad. It's a damn disgrace. I really, really do think that. And I know I'm not the only one that's absolutely seething at this. There'll be many people reading what you've just said, watching what you've just said, and wondering what the hell is going on in Britain in 2021.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.